Our lives are full of temptation. In the Garden of Eden and in the wilderness, we want to try on evil. We are tempted, and we want to test ourselves, our limits, and our God. We focus and obsess over those things we don't and often can't have. Our God is one of abundance who gives us everything that we need. You may freely eat of every tree of the garden, free fruit of every tree, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat. For in the day you shall eat of it, you shall die. Temptation. We want what we don't and what we cannot have. But we, like Adam and Eve, want more and are tempted internally and externally. It may not seem like a big deal. Fruit is fruit. Fruit is abundant and good for you. But that particular fruit will separate us from God, will break our relationship, will get us tossed out of the garden and into the wilderness. Wilderness where the wild things are. Where the wild things are. Maurice Sendak, who wrote and illustrated the children's book, Where the Wild Things Are, more than 50 years ago, gave a gift to me. First, as a non-reader who was frightened by the images that it contains, and then motivating me as a young reader to learn how to read this book, and then as a mischievous older brother using that book to terrorize my younger siblings. The author of this book and our God knows about the wild thing in each one of us. We all have a wolf suit lurking in our closets that our mischievous self reaches for. How appropriate in Wolfboro. Think about that, each one of us with a wolf suit in the closet. We put that suit on to try evil and to eat from the forbidden tree. Hear Max's story and your own. The night Max wore his wolf suit and made mischief of one kind and another. His mother called him Wild Thing, and Max said, "I'll eat you up." So he was sent to bed without eating anything. That very night in Max's room, a forest grew and grew and grew until his ceiling hung with vines and the walls became the world all around. And an ocean tumbled by with a private boat for Max, and he sailed off through night and day, and in and out of weeks, and almost over a year, to where the wild things are. And when he came to that place where the wild things are, they roared their terrible roars and gnashed their terrible teeth and rolled their terrible eyes and showed their terrible claws, till Max said, "Be still," and tame them with the magic trick of staring into their yellow eyes without blinking once. And they were frightened and called him the most wild thing of all and made him king of all wild things. "And now," cried Max, "let the wild rumpus start." Kind of hard to see. I'll bring it to coffee hour, but they rumpus not just for one, but two, but three full pages. "Now stop," Max said, and sent the wild things off to bed without their supper. And Max, the king of all wild things, was lonely and wanted to be where someone loved him best of all. Then all around from far away across the world, he smelled good things to eat. So he gave up being king of where the wild things are. But the wild things cried, "Oh, please don't go. We'll eat you up. We love you so." And Max said no. The wild things roared their terrible roars and gnashed their terrible teeth and rolled their terrible eyes and showed their terrible claws. But Max stepped into his private boat and waved goodbye. And sailed back over a year and in and out of weeks and through a day and into the night of his very own room, where he found his supper waiting for him. And it was still hot. Max leaves the temptation of where the wild things are and comes home. Home where everything is provided for him. Home where we are given limits and sent to our room, but we are still loved. And a warm supper awaits us, no matter what. God's love is like Max's mom, abundant. And when we live in its abundance, we live fully. And when we wander away to the thrills of temptation, we separate ourselves from God and from those we love and those who love us. We turn away and choose death, death that is the separation from our God. We stumble zombie-like into a wilderness of our own making, the shell of who God made us to be, the sinful shadow of our own choosing, the serpent listening, walking dead. And when we realize how dead we are, how the thrills of temptation have left us unfulfilled and seemingly unloved, we get embarrassed. We see our naked sins and we hide behind fig leaves of fear. Our eyes, now open to our sin, show us the boundaries that God gives us as gift. God gives us the law, the command, not to eat of that one tree, to protect Adam and Eve and all of us this day from exceeding our own human limitations, from our becoming like gods. God expelled them from the Garden of Eden, the safe and secure place of perfection, and sent them out into the ordinary, out into where sometimes wild things are. But beloveds, thankfully, our God provides and meets us out there in the ordinary, and especially where and when the wild things are. God wants to save us from all that tempts us. And God sent Jesus to us to experience the ordinary and to be with us in those wild places. To save us from all that tempts us. God wants to save your life, this and every day. But Jesus did more than just experience the ordinary. He came to also experience the loneliness and the famine. He came to experience the lows of doubt and temptation. He came to experience the devil and where the wild things are. And through his wilderness experience, Jesus does not try on evil as Adam and Eve and Max and all of us do. But he did come face to face with it. And through his endurance, Jesus does more than pass just some kind of a test. Jesus remembers who he is. Jesus, the wild Messiah. The one who will provoke a confrontation with the powers and the principalities. The one who will call his followers to join him as he sets up a different kind of kingdom and a different way of life. Jesus is with us when we reach into that closet for that wolf suit, when we try out evil. Jesus remembers what it is like to be tempted, and he forgives us and calls us to follow him, even and especially where the wild things are. And when our wilderness walk is over. Jesus calls us. He calls us into his own room, that place where we will find unconditional love forever. The Lord's Supper is waiting for us, and it's still warm.